graphical elements within the tarot, on the basis that we're linked to Egypt by all sorts of hidden ways, which is a statement from the eminent Egyptologist Jan Assmann. As we know, scholarly opinion, as we just heard, is that the tarot cards are no earlier than the Italian Renaissance, and that the cartomantic deck is probably even more recent than that, from the Napoleonic era. Here's a quote: "The hypothesis of an Egyptian provenance for the tarot can be discounted on several grounds. First, the ancient Egyptians did not have paper or cardboard in which to construct tarot cards. Maybe in terms of cards, right? So you're distinguishing paper and cards. The imagery. Even so, the origins of the tarot deck can be traced to the Visconti court of Milan. Its progenitor, the regular playing card deck. Actually, the regular playing card deck, the same author says, did have an origin in the ancient land of Egypt. So the actual playing card deck, even by the people. Okay, next one. Forgotten what I'm on. So, okay, that's the Sun card. Okay, the important thing, I think, is that sequence, of Alexander. Alexander is very, very important within the tradition of alchemy within Europe. The Alexander romance, the whole story of Nectanebo, the magician, and the things that he taught to Alexander, and the things that his mother did. It's very, very important in the mysteries of alchemy, one way or another. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, Simon talked about the Este family. And Este family is the origin of the tarot trumps as an alternative theory. Fantastic. This is, I think it's, no, I might be getting mixed up. Anyway, this is the Salon de Messi, the Hall of the Months in Ferrara, which I think belongs to the Este family.
It's a fresco.
Is that right? And there's a series of tableaus for each of the months. It doesn't seem to be completed, or maybe it got damaged or something. We'll have a look at that in some detail. Next one. Okay. What I'm going to talk about is an Egyptian element within that hall, which is a thing called decans. This is a kind of schematic of the wall, right, of the sequence of the months, those that survive. You've got the tableaus, like the Triumphe. They're also in two parts, like the two parts of the Luna.
Oh, yes,
and then in the centre, you've got the decans. The decans, very, very underestimated, overlooked aspect of Egyptian esotericism. So you've got a decanal list, an incredibly interesting decanal list as well. And the decans, these sequence, because in Egypt the week lasted 10 days, so you kind of get this sequence of 36 iconographic elements, demons in a way, which we're going to talk about, that kind of go in this sequence and are to do with a person's fate. This is the origin of astrology. No, not of astrology, of horoscopes. This is the first type of horoscope is based on the decans. Okay, I know it's not a very good slide. I sort of nicked it from a book. I can't even read most of it. Let's go to the next one. Okay, there's one of those tableaus in detail. You've got the Triumphe at the top, as rightly said. Something being dragged. You've got a god in that, and you've got a goddess being dragged by two white horses. I would almost bet, right, the goddesses, right, these things are going to be Isis as well. It's well known from other research into the decans that the goddess Isis occurs in the decans and in astrology. It's known. It's quite a complicated issue with decans. I'm going to have to skirt over it very, very quickly. I've got a book. I've been researching the decans for a long time. So I've got this book which rather dramatically called the Demonic Calendar, which gives you the Egyptian system of the decans from which it originates, and then it traces the progress of the decans through different texts, right, starting quite early on. I think it's, obviously the decans, if you've got a tarot deck, there are interpretations of the decans. You probably don't look at them of the cards. They are there, right, and it's interesting to know how they got into the modern tarot deck. Where that system, where Arthur Waite got the system of the decans that he put into the tarot designs. I'm mainly focusing on the decans in this bit of the talk. If you could tell me I've got 5 minutes just in case I'm alright, in case I could skip to the chase then. Okay, so the decanal texts start in ancient Egypt. They go all over the place. They go to India, and they become part of the Indian astrological system. From India, they go into the Islamic world and back into the West via Byzantium and all the rest. You can find them in the Goetia. There's a sequence of decans in the Goetia, not so well known. You can get them in an Indian text called the Yavana Jataka. You can get them translated by William Lilly, the translation of an Arabic source, Abu Masa. You can get them in a thing called the Testament of Solomon, which is a kind of early magical text from Egypt that becomes the source of all the grimoires. Basically, all the grimoires are derivative versions of the Testament of Solomon, one way or another. I'll read a little bit. Can we have another one? Okay, so there's the decans in detail. You see 3 decans. There's a figure here, 3 decans of Aries. So the constellation of Aries has 3 sections. It's triplicity, if you like. First 10-day period, second 10-day period, third 10-day period. Next one. Okay, you see there's a whole system. This is Virgo, and the triumph of Virgo, with the decanal list in the centre. It looked very, very strange, sort of Middle Eastern look really. And this is almost certainly the goddess Isis. That decan is always Isis in other systems that you find, certainly in India and all the rest. And this is Cancer. The 3 decans of Cancer. So the decans become incorporated into the tarot, into the small cards, so these are the ones that we kind of tend to ignore. Okay, next slide. This is my version of the Egyptian decans. This isn't in the book, I've been kind of drawing them out. The Egyptian system, essentially, they're demons. Right? It's a sequence of demonic things that over every 10-day period rises over the process of birth of the person and affects them for that 10-day period. And this is, I've started a process of redrawing them. This is the first one, which is, when I say demons, obviously that's Sirius, was the goddess Isis, but she's still, does some bad things. Well, mostly favourable. FFF means favourable, 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 morning, noon and night. Right, that's how it works. This particular day would be adverse, adverse, favourable. So don't do anything in the morning or the afternoon. But others are really, now this is getting more snake-headed deity, bearing 2 pots, 1 black, 1 white. There's a whole sequence of these things that affect people. If I can go to the next slide. Okay, this is the famous astrological ceiling from Dendera, Temple of Hathor. And in fact, I think I've kind of discovered a new astrological ceiling at Dendera, because all the published books don't actually say that this is a decanal list, and I'm pretty sure it is. But if you look, it's a procession. It's a procession of entities travelling in this direction, one after the other, each 10-day period. Some of them as a snake standing on its tail, clearly demonic, some sort of creature there. Mostly serpents on whatever. There's 3 serpents crossing a 3rd serpent. Some of them are even more. This is Ptolemaic period, when they're kind of really into this. You can see we're looking up, we're looking at the ceiling. I was lucky enough to go there and photograph the entire ceiling of the Temple of Dendera at Hathor. Temple of Hathor at Nedra. So that is part of this idea of a sequence of different iconographical elements related to the calendar and to the moment of birth and everything is something, it's very, very Egyptian. But it is relatively new research. Okay, go to the next one. So, famously, what number slide is that? I've got lost now.
15.
15. The decans in the regular tarot are ascribed to the the numbered cards, the small numbered cards between 2 and 10. So not the ace. So if you take the 2 to the 10, that's 9 cards. 4 times 9 equals 36, which is the classic number of decans. And the number 36 and 2 times 36, 72, is one of these magic numbers that occurs in all sorts of symbol systems. So the decans are there. As is well known, Pamela Colman-Smith, who designed the famous Rider-Waite deck, she was very influenced by the Solar Busker deck. Which was, the British Museum acquired a copy of the Solar Busker deck, which is quite a rare deck, I think. I don't think it was very well known. It's a rare deck, they acquired it in 1907, and only photographs, they didn't acquire a copy of the deck. I think they only acquired rare photographs of the deck to show you how kind of special it was. And it was exhibited soon after, and Arthur Waite and Pamela Colman-Smith visited the exhibition, and thus the small cards in the tarot acquire this very, very interesting design. But also you notice that, actually there is almost the same design, isn't it? You know, this is just taking the design completely from it. I thought I was going to show another one. Okay, yeah, you can see another one here. You can compare the Solar Busker with the Rider-Waite deck, and you can see the influence. Unmistakable. These are the decanal cards. Although she's changed, for some reason, she's changed this is clubs and this is swords. And she makes all sorts of little changes like that. Now, why does she do that? If she's going to copy the Solar Busker, why doesn't she just keep to the Solar Busker scheme? I think it must be because Rider-Waite provides these interpretations of the decanal images in the tarot, but he must have access to some secret source, basically. He's got another source, he must do. Okay, we better hurry on. This is the King of Swords from the Rider-Waite pack, which would be Alexander. And funny enough, the image in the back of the cards does look like Siwa in Egypt, which is shown on the right. Okay, the next one. Okay, yeah, so this is a Solar Busker, and here's an example of a decanal interpretation from this one from the Testament of Solomon, which is, as I say, a late Egyptian magical text, and it says, I am Bar-Saphael, and I cause who are subject to my hour to feel the pain of migraine. If only you hear the words, Gabriel, imprisoned Bar-Saphael, I'll go. They're very obliging, the demons. They always tell you what they're going to do to you, and then they tell you, oh, don't worry, just say this, it'll be fine. Yeah, that's what kind of migraine. But you can... Sorry, you want more of these interpretations. Okay, next one. Okay, so I've mentioned the fact that there's another new piece of evidence from a place called Akhmin in Egypt, chemist, as it's known as, and it's got a guy called Zosimus, who is said to be the first Greek alchemist. This is a common feature in this sort of research, that Egyptians are always relabeled Greeks. Right? People are radical, they always say, oh, it's Greek, it's Greek, it's Greek. Zosimus was a priest in the temple of the god Min, the Phallic god, in Akhmin. He was a priest. He probably spoke Greek, he wrote in Greek, but he was an Egyptian priest. He was a specialist, he was a techne a specialist on material culture, on dyes and colour. Right, and if you think about it, dyes and colour. So bear that in mind, dyes and colour. Okay, I need to wind up? Okay, sorry, so dyes and colour. He's also the origin, he's the origin of all psychological alchemy. The origin of psychological alchemy. A lot of his books are lost. You see, the alchemical element within tarot is well known. There is an Solopuska, the dragon. This is Zosimus, this is a later source, but this is essentially Zosimus and his Shakti, Theosabia. That image, tracking down that image is one of the reasons which was thought to be not present in Egypt, was one of the most interesting things. So finally, let's go to the next, slip through it. Okay, let's at least look at one of the images. So Zosimus had this magical relationship with a woman called who he called his queen, Theosabia, was an enormous correspondence that went on over a lot of time about alchemy and magic and the mysteries. Okay, now I'll just say, what was I going to say? Zosimus, in the end, right, she says he's so fed up with the correspondence, he couldn't understand a word of it. It's too complicated, so he said, I'll draw you a series of pictures. I shall draw you a series of 40, in the end, it ends up as 42 images. I'll draw you 42 images, and that'll explain everything. And I'll appeal to you in dreams, and I'll explain it to you there. I'll place you in a vision. So the second card in the sequence, obviously you've got to kind of interpret these things. Second card in the sequence, this is a recently discovered book of pictures by the Greek alchemist Zosimus. This is the triple-headed god Thoth, the second one in the sequence. Triple-headed god holding by the hair the alchemist and his Shakti, Zosimus and Theosabia. Very, very like the Thoth tarot, the god Hermes or Thoth, the Egyptian Thoth, in the Crowley deck, which he kind of restores it, that the second card of the sequence is Thoth, is the god Thoth. It could even be that even the magician card that has this kind of figure of 8 on it, it might be a depiction of a turban. Okay, just flick through the end and I'll finish. Okay, there's a few other ones. God, this is so remarkable. I wish I could tell you about this one. This is incredible. But do go and look at the amduat that's on the table with the tea ceremony outside, because this image is, if you do the next one, you see you've got a corpse being carried with snakes coming out of it. This is the resurrection, this is the transformation. Go to the next one. Same image from the 6 hours, the Amduat. The corpse being resurrected and carried by serpents. This is the alchemical oven. Maybe the tower, the blasted tower, the Tower of Nimrud, is actually the alchemical oven. It's a strong possibility that the resurrection business, okay, just sit through the resurrection chamber. There you go. It just happens, he's lived near the resurrection chamber at Abydos. Alchemy is all about resurrection. It's obviously that it completely goes into the images. So in a way, the tarot sequence could, even the trunks, is sort of a modern version or a tarot version of the Amduat. And if you want to know what's about, go and look at the copy of the Amduat that's on the stall out there. Just have a flick through, you'll get a hugely complicated, interesting book. And I've got some books, demonic calendar.